Hi again. Well, in the last segment, we got you to have a look at the results of unforgiveness and the torture that gives inside when you actually hold on to those things and don't forgive. So, Jane, what steps do we need to take to forgive and to get free?
Well, the first thing we need to do is just make a free will choice. So just like in our situation, I just decided I needed to forgive you. So that's a very important thing. So we just make up our mind, I'm going to forgive. A lot of people say to me, I can't forgive, but that's not true. It just really is a choice. We just make that decision, I am going to forgive. Now that's really good because it involves our head, but it's not usually the head that's hurting, it's usually our heart. And so we need to involve our heart in that choice as well. So you'll see in the prayer that we're going to give you that you can follow to make this easy for you, that when you actually forgive, you say, I choose to forgive Ian for running off with another girl and making me feel. Now, when we bring the feelings into it, now that made me feel devastated, destroyed, and like I was worthless, right? So by bringing in those feelings, I then involved my heart. And if we choose to do that, choose to make that conscious decision and also to involve our feelings, you will find that when you get to the end of that prayer, that's because you've brought those feelings out from the darkness of your heart and into the light, that you're actually those feelings are going to be removed from you, and you're no longer going to be tortured by those feelings anymore, and that's very important, and that's why we've included this in that step. So Ian, that's the first step we need to take, but there's more steps, and the second step, what is that second step?
Well, the second step is to renounce the judgments you've made against that person. And if we have a look in Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 to 5, it says, do not judge. And this is Jesus speaking here. He says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the same measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Right. And so to truly get the freedom and not receive that judgment back on yourself, you need to renounce the judgments. And judgments are like building a wall between each other. You think you're protecting your heart by building that wall, but really all you're doing is separating yourself from the other person.
It might destroying that relationship.
That's right. It might feel a bit better, but really you've just cut yourself off from the other person. And we often make judgments by calling people's names. And so, Jane, maybe what are some of the things that a wife would say about her husband? What sort of names come to mind?
He's just a child.
Yeah.
He's useless. He's hopeless. He never does anything that I want him to do. He's just absolutely a disaster.
And for a man, he might say something like, well, my wife, she's just bossy, or she just nags me all the time, And so these things, by naming them out, you're actually cursing your marriage, aren't you?
You are.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes if we're using names like that, if we have a name for that person, it definitely means we have something we need to forgive. And I don't think we always think about that, do we? We sometimes think that's who they are, rather than actually realising that's just a judgment we've made against them. In God's eyes, that person is not what we have judged them to be. He loves everyone. He has made us in his image, and that's how he wants us to see each other. And if we're seeing them in any other way, it means we're looking with distorted eyes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So when we get you to do the prayer soon, we're going to be getting you to renounce that judgment.
Yeah.
And releasing the other person. Yeah.
Renouncing just means to speak it out loud. It's like repenting of that judgment, but actually speaking the words out loud. And we really recommend, don't just do all this in your head. You're coming before the Lord, but use words out loud, because the devil needs to know that you are releasing that person from these judgments. And I would suggest praying these whole prayers out loud. Yeah. It's very important because it really gets things out into the light.
Yeah.
So
Jane, there's still another step. Yeah. So what is that next step in this prayer?
Well, that next step is blessing the other person. And in Matthew 5:44 it says, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Or you could say, but I tell you, love your spouse and pray for him when he persecutes you.
Or her.
But you're him. So there's a direct command from God there to
Yeah.
actually pray for them when they're persecuting you. It's about the last thing you feel like doing, that you don't feel like blessing them. Now, when we speak out blessing over the other person, really the judgment is speaking curse over the other person. But when we speak the blessing, we're speaking as God would want us to speak over that person as he speaks over us.
So it's speaking life, really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
speaking life instead of
death. Yeah.
And in Deuteronomy 30:15 it says, "See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction." So if you are willing to forgive, if you're willing to actually renounce those judgments, you're going to go from the death process into the process of life.
Yeah. So you're actually choosing life, aren't you?
That's it. So this is how critical this is. So if you want a marriage that's full of love and blessing and understanding, we need to be quick to forgive, slow to anger, and abounding in love.
That's
And
right.
that's what it says that God is towards us. But we need to be like that towards one another. So often we want God to be merciful towards us when we make mistakes, but we want him to judge our spouse. So we must remember that if we want mercy, we need to be merciful. If we want judgment, then we can give out judgment, but none of us really want judgment. So it's very important that we actually are, on a day-to-day basis, we are keeping very short accounts. In fact, we recommend every day, Ian and I, we actually do forgive one another, don't we? At
We
the
pray
end of the
together
day.
every day, yeah.
And so we keep very short accounts.
That's
We've dealt with the big things a long time ago,
Okay.
but I would say even on the small irritations, those little disappointments, make sure you are forgiving each other daily.
Yeah.
And it says in the Bible, don't let your sun go down on your anger. And that is very good advice if you want to have a happy and healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So now we'll just get you to take those disappointments that you identified in the first session and the people and the situations that you identified in the second, and to go through this process of truly forgiving from the heart. And by using these steps, you will find that you'll find the freedom and the life that Jesus has for you.
Yeah.
And if you've never come to have a relationship with Jesus, then stay on at the end of this video, and we've got another one there entitled Good News for Marriage, and it just shares the life that eternal life that you can find in Jesus, and the abundant life that he has for you, and a plan and a purpose for your lives individually, but also as a married couple.
That's true.
So bless you. We'll see you again next time.